Welcome to the Blockbusters and Birdwalks podcast. I am the curator, Garrett Chaffin-Quiray. Today we feature a conversation.
Hi, this is Tom Long.
Let me take you back to the middle of 2022, when the world was beginning to lift a bit from COVID restrictions, and I think by that point I'd had the Pfizer double tap, so I was feeling ready to re-enter public spaces. However, I was not yet ready to go back into a public movie theater.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
And at that very point, there were these two smallish movies being released that have a little harmony spot for the stuff that I like. One was Billy Eichner's Bros, and the other was this movie on Hulu, written by and starring Joel Kim Booster, Fire Island. Fire Island, because it's on the streamer, I paid less attention to because I do privilege things that go into the feature marketplace. But as I say, I was too chicken to actually pay money and sit in a theater. I didn't see either in their initial release, and I lost track of them until, I'd say, just about a year ago. So this would be January 24. The missus and me pulled Bros off the shelf and had terrific fun. It's such a raucous and gnarly and sexy and explicit and thoughtful understanding of what romance can be among a certain subset of adults. So when we hatched the plan to do this romance series and Fire Island was still hanging out there, I thought, yeah, we got to commit to this. And I'm so glad we did. It is a kind of retelling of Pride and Prejudice set on New York's Fire Island, which has for decades been a gay and lesbian mecca. It's a place that I remember being much mythologized when I first moved to New York City in the middle 1990s, and frankly, I was intimidated to ever go because of the sexed up stories you would hear about how the dunes would work, or how certain clubs were organized around paraphilias and all of the rest. And, you know, I'm this cis, hetero, white kid with blue eyes in the big city with nary a dollar in my pocket. I'm frightened of places that suggest they might overwhelm. So seeing this environment sanitized through a really well-created, nicely plotted adventure completely set up my year to come with a great flavor of artistic excellence and raw entertainment. What was your thought about Fire Island?
I liked it as a fun little story. I'm only slightly familiar with Pride and Prejudice because, you know, like I'm a dork. I like sci-fi stuff. I don't read the Jane Austen books. So this was I knew a little bit about it, probably from other retellings of Pride and Prejudice. So when I watched it, this is what this character is, and oh, that's the jerk character that's going to get revealed at the end. But even knowing that, how the characters and the actors, you know, portrayed their parts was wonderful because they really brought something, I think, to each person. Like Bowen Yang, who's wonderful on SNL, was hilarious, and I thought it was cute how he was sort of this like pop culture nerd. Like if in the script, like he's always throwing out references to like Marvel Cinematic Universe or SNL or Clueless. There was a Clueless reference. I was like, oh, this is great, you know, because if anything, I probably identified more with his character because he had the glasses. He was the dorky one. That would be me.
He's got a dad bod, you know? He's not gym ripped. He's not super hot. He doesn't yank off his shirt. That's reserved for many of the secondary characters, but our lead, Joel Kim Booster, who plays Noah. Noah and Yang's character, Howie, are best friends who are partly committed to one another because they're both gay Asian Americans who recognize their minority status in both of those ways, and it bonds them more tightly than it does to their found family, which goes to Fire Island, where Margaret Cho has this house. It was terrific to see Margaret Cho. So when she shows up as kind of the house maven that these 5 young men all run to each summer to hang out together, she acts as their mother figure. It's kind of a wonderment of seeing how people collect themselves around shared affinity and love, which has nothing to do with bio families and blood relations. And in my own experiences, and I think this probably is true for you as well, we're both committed to people that we met who are strangers and then now they're spouses. So it is a kind of natural fomenting of emotional energy to find other people who you didn't share a womb with or you didn't share a room with and become the most important part of your life. And that's the root setting of this. They're with their found family for this week-long festivity of exploring the body. But there's Bowen in his soft body and his big brain, as you say, making references that I get. And I assume that there are a bunch of things I did not understand, but I generally find his delivery pretty satisfying because he is my point of view character. I don't know what it is to be as beautiful as a lot of the people we see on screen are. I've never been that good looking a fella, no matter how in shape I was at age 18. So when you see somebody who's more like the me walking the world, it is a way to feel comfortable with what's on screen. And that's a good casting choice because Bowen's a great talent, but also a way to let people, ordinaries, kind of see themselves, because not everybody can be or should be extraordinary.
The main character of Noah, his delivery was also wonderful, I thought. It is, like you said, based on Pride and Prejudice, so I really like the way that, his prejudice was on display because of the way he reacts to the well-offs and the really handsome and the really beautiful people on the island. Even though, he's experienced prejudice himself, that was another great element of the story. I thought it's like, prejudice doesn't, discriminate. Everybody's got one. It doesn't matter if you're the rich guy prejudiced instead of the poor schlubs, or you're the poor schlub who's prejudiced against the well-off, silver spoon babies.
And there's some great sets that explore that. I mean, the home that Noah and Howie and their friends live inside of is a really nice house, but the places they go party, where the Richie Riches hang out, wow, make this rather comfortable home that they share with their buddies into a shack. There is an eye towards recognizing Fire Island is a queer mecca generally. There are some trans-ish characters around the edges of it all. Margaret Cho's there being a very outward lesbian, talking about some of her experiences out in the dunes with women. There's a memorable joke about her being on all fours, servicing a woman, worrying about whether she's carrying crabs. And that's all funny, and it makes a lot of sense. By acknowledging that, it also allows us to recognize there are other stories of this setting which are understood, but we're primarily going to focus on these young men hanging out around Noah. It's been in my house to watch the Joe Wright Pride and Prejudice, the one that stars Keira Knightley. I've seen it a few times since COVID broke because my girls really go for it, and I do too, let's just be honest. And that movie is very much like this one, and this movie explicitly references it from the voiceovers that Noah gives, describing himself as being like Elizabeth Bennet, which is true. Very smart, very capable, very poor, and always recognizing the importance of jumping up where possible through relational transactions, whether that's for sex, whether that's romance, but always being wary of getting trapped in the kind of husband trick of finding somebody who's going to control you, the richer, older, more sophisticated, controlling man. And of course, the switch here, this is a gay environment where everybody's male, so some of that gendering, some of that sex relations fade away. All the fellas are dealing with this problem. And what's always been interesting to observe relatively honest young queer folk is the way that they're very often more polyamorous than I have ever been, and more capable of doing that healthfully because it's communicated. This is what I want, this is what you can give, and the distance between means we're not going to be a good match, but perhaps we can be friends. Or we were once a good physical, sexual match or what have you, but that didn't work out long haul, but we can still be friends. In my experiences, it doesn't work that way. You're in with somebody or you're not, and then very often you never look backwards again. It's nice to see this updated Jane Austen applied to a different environment successfully.
Yeah. That would not be an experience I would ever have, like going out to a place like Fire Island, or like you say, having a polyamorous relationship. That said, I mean, I enjoyed the experience of watching it because the world is a rainbow, and that's my way of doing things isn't the only way of doing things, and it's cool to see that other people have other experiences that are positive and work out for them. So seeing this family of choice come together just to enjoy an experience, enjoy each other, and they fight. I thought that was the cool part. It's like even within this tight knit group of chosen people, like because when you're not blood family, it's easy enough to just walk away. But these people, even though they bicker and fight, and they still hang on and resolve their issues.
They teach each other how to apologize. I know for myself I'm terrible at that. When I wrong somebody and know it, because that's one dimension. Do you know you did the wrong thing? And then will you try to make amends? And then how you accomplish that? I don't always know that I've wronged somebody, and if I don't agree, I don't want to make amends and reach out, which means that I have a lot of pride. And so that gets in the way of what it is you need to accomplish to create a proper relationship. And we do watch these characters struggle through that. Yeah, sometimes it's because they're just terribly intoxicated or they're stimulated by various substances, but they learn to talk across that, partly because these group members, they bring themselves back together over and over. They don't allow you to get too far away. They want everybody to be healthfully regarding one another as the family they've chosen for themselves. Another small element that's just coming to mind towards the end of the movie, because Noah meets this character Will. You mentioned him. That's Conrad Ricamora, who's just gorgeous. And Will is characterized as being a very, very wealthy man who's known to be a lawyer. And for some reason, he's extremely protective of his friend Charlie. He's the white boy. Charlie is the white boy that Howie falls for. And we spend the movie watching Noah try to help Charlie and Howie get it on and fuse and have sex, only to realize they're actually falling in love with one another, while Noah is in fact falling for Will and doesn't know how to be honest about that. There's an element of how Will and Noah get along where they keep asking each other, what do you want, in between confusing one another, insulting one another, fighting with one another, before they finally kiss and start to embrace one another. In that last portion of the movie, when they finally recognize mutually they have these feelings and they try to set some boundaries up, what we learn, they're sitting on a dock waiting for the sunset, and we learn that Will doesn't want to be exclusive. And you can see that for some reason that shocks and upsets Noah because, well, he's kind of a sex fiend. They're there to have a lot of partners. Will doesn't want to be exclusively Noah's boyfriend. But then Will says, I want that. He points down the dock, and we see these two older men who I would say are older than we are, perhaps even a generation older. I was pegging them in their middle 60s to middle 70s, who are arm in arm and dancing to music only they hear. And the little beauty of that, recognizing generational groups of people who enjoy Fire Island, and though those older men have aged out of the entertainment we've just watched, they're still present in this environment. And the younger men realize one day, if all goes well, we will become them, looking back on the youth who have replaced us to come up through the ranks just as we have. These moments when I see them in popular entertainment just really please me because I'm becoming the old guy. When you talk about the adventures of life, you're no longer referring to what I'm going to go through. You're talking about our children. And while I know that to be true, and I also think that way, I don't think that I'm done. So I just need a little nod every now and then that I still exist with my white hair and my old man habits and my creaky joints, and there they are. Will, the love interest of Noah, pointing out, that's what I want, and then invites Noah to take him by the arm, and they dance to the music that wells up non-diegetically in the soundtrack so we know what they're doing. But there they are embracing one another, and they kiss, and they're enfolded into the found family to watch the final sunset. I mean, mwah, just great.
Yeah, it was a nice a nice ending, like you said. You framed it well that they're looking for. Isn't this the old-fashioned, we got a monogamous marriage? I took that to mean he wants someone that he will know the rest of his life and to have a dancing partner the rest of it. And they're like, oh, that's cool. That's a nice way to, metaphor for what after this whole, sexcapade experience on Fire Island is.
Those remarks and that concluding piece, it connects for me with something that Howie, Bowen Yang's character, explains to the group when they're taking the ferry from the main part of Long Island to Fire Island to go on their adventures. Is in the first 10 minutes. And they're reflecting on how it's so great to be away from all the heteros, how it's so great to be among their own, so great to not have to put on airs and wear the mask of mainstream life, but be in the extended family of queer America for their summer break. And then how he sort of puts a damper on the party and describes all of the reasons why straight people have a problem with Fire Island specifically, but all queer people more generally.
And also heteronormativity, Judeo-Christian pathology, anal.
That's the complete experience of all queerness to folks who don't like the idea of queerness, sodomy. And that's not true, but it does seem to be the thing that just stops short any imagination, any identification, and any sense of kindness towards other people. But I like that Bowen Yang drops that in the dialogue right there before they then hop off the pier to go enjoy themselves for a week's bacchanal of substances and sex. At least that's the hope. And that connects then with the end of the movie, of course, when we realize that will still be a part of these men's lives, whatever kind of sex they enjoy. And Will is honest about it. It's not all going to be with you, fella. but you're hot stuff. And Noah even says during that very same exchange, I mean, look at us, we're so beautiful. I mean, they really are. And of course, at some point, they'll become older men, maybe not as beautiful. Perhaps they'll age gracefully. Hard to say. Maybe they can have a Fire Island 2 in 20 years when they're more our age than they are now, men in their 30s. I'm sure they're still going to be gorgeous, but they're going to age. What are the favorite things for you in this movie? Lines of dialogue, bits of prop, music? What stuck to you?
I think I enjoyed the like I think I already referenced. I enjoyed Bo and Yang's like pop culture references because for some reason those had me laughing out loud because it was a way of taking the Pride and Prejudice backdrop story to flesh out a character that can tie it to something that I can identify with. Because that's the other part too is like I think with these niche movies because that's what it is. I mean you're not going to get just like a horror movie, you're not going to get most people going to see it. It has to feel like most straight people aren't interested in watching a movie about gay characters.
It's lifestyle tourism. Just to throw it back with a big reference, when movies were new more than 100 years ago, what they largely were devoted to is travelogues, cameras set up in remote places that most people had never heard of to show you what was there. Things have changed, and fiction storytelling largely overtook what movies are all about, what television is all about. But in the last 2 generations, the idea of documenting the weird stuff of the world is basically all that reality television does, and we see it on virtually every cable and streaming channel that's available to us. So connecting that with the fact that I know that my wallet is thin, my time is limited, my capabilities are starting to wane as I grow older, seeking media that takes me into locations, into experiences, and to meet people that I'm unlikely to meet through the natural travels of my lifetime, strike me as a good use of my time. So for 2 hours, and this movie isn't even that long, almost 2 hours of this screen experience, I can go to parts of Fire Island that I have read about, that I have heard about, but I have never visited. And the truth is I'm unlikely to, because there are so many other places that I'm pulled in the direction of trying to prioritize and being able to sample them through television, through streaming media, through movies, through the occasional piece of journalism is the way to go. And that's a good way to think of this. It takes us somewhere we're not used to going, and for the price of admission, which is just your Hulu subscription, pretty cheap if you use it a lot across a month, you get to go to some exciting places and hang out with some people you might not choose normally, but maybe ought to. I put on an educator's hat, because of how I earn money, and one of the things I do when I wear that hat is try to suggest to people that there are things they're not used to looking at that they ought to go meet, simply to know that they exist, because other people in their future, friends, family, and so on, may need to know that's an avenue of expression to explore, even if it's of limited interest to you. And I think this movie offers some of that. It explores what families are like, because there are several stories around this, Noah included, where they acknowledged that when they did their coming out experience, it did not go well. Their natal family didn't necessarily throw them out or do something really awful, but it was clearly the end of a mature relationship. And that's something that a lot of people experience, whether it's in a queer-identified life or not. There is a limit to what your natal family will expect of you and allow you to do before you simply just diverge and go your own direction. And it's nice to hear that message from characters like these, who are charismatic, sometimes obnoxious, almost always very funny. And that helps make the medicine go down, which is something I appreciate.
The one scene that had me cracked up, as Will and Noah are having their they're not on the same page. They're clearly attracted to each other, but they keep missing. But then the scene where they go into the bar and it's I think the drag show is going on, the stand up, and Noah pushes Will up there to do the dance off contest.
Get to the front. Let's see what you really got, honey. All right, Will, let's go. Get sexy.
And he actually made an. I thought that was really cool because he actually made an effort. It's like I would never have the courage to do something like that.
That's right. Think all out too. Yes. Okay.
He's pushing his feathers, and we're watching that soften both of them and regard each other differently because they see there's a soft belly underneath that rough armor that they're always wearing around all day long. Yeah, it is a good little moment. A small detail there's a later party when Noah and his set do drugs and go to an underpants disco kind of a thing. And he's trying to find Howie to make sure he's safe because things are going wrong in their romantic entanglements. And he's going through the bathroom stalls in the men's room, and there's a dude taking a dump. And Noah says,
At a party.
this is not the place to do a private function like that. There's a little note that I worried, because I tried not to read ahead when I was preparing to watch the movie. I just wanted to enjoy it, generally knowing what the Pride and Prejudice background is. And you have the character from Pride and Prejudice, George Wickham, who's a bad guy, and he seduces one of the Bennet girls, and you uncover that through the course of the piece, and things go right by the end of the tale and all of the movie adaptations. So Dex, this beautiful white guy, he's so mid because he's just a beautiful muscular white guy. He's such a fulfillment of type. We know something's wrong because Will has alerted Noah that this guy's not to be trusted. We don't know what it is, but he films without consent the sex making with his partners. He's a top, and generally he chooses bottoms, and he films them to then share on social media to earn some money with his OnlyFans account and promote himself through Instagram. The idea of putting revenge porn right in the middle of this thing, I thought, that was cool. I didn't see it coming. It allows the character of Dex, who's being George Wickham, be updated into this tale, and it also lets us sort of morally expunge him quickly, because that's a dastardly thing to do. I believe permission is important, and the character that he wrongs is one of Noah's besties, and you don't get to do that to one of Noah's besties because Noah and his group, including Will, they go after this guy Dex and say, you're a dick. You can't behave this way.
You mentioned modernization. I like it because at the conclusion of that conflict, Will and Noah are walking down the steps. Noah's feeling pretty good. The last thing he did was take the guy's phone and throw it into the pool. And Will just says, almost flippantly, those things are waterproof.
Don't ruin this for me.
And of course, the nice connection there is Noah is too poor to have a modern phone that's waterproof because his was dumped in a pool at the opening of the movie, and it sits in a bowl of rice the whole flick. One other little note is the music cues that are used throughout this please me too. I recognize the tunes. There's a really nice number right in the middle of it. It's when Bo and Yang's Howie is asked to come up and do karaoke, and he's backed up by his friends.
Sometimes I ride, sometimes I hide, sometimes I'm scared of you, but all I really want is to hold you tight, try, be with you day and night, baby, all I need is time.
This is Blockbusters and Birdwalks, a conversation between Garrett Chaffin-Quiray and
Tom Long.
Boop boobity doo.